Love bombing is like a drug. It feels so incredibly good. And it can feel so good that you turn a blind eye to the fact that this person is showing you way too much love, way too much affection, and way too much investment for the amount of time that they've actually known you. Avoidants are notorious for love bombing partners. No, not all of them do it, but they certainly are prone to it, and that includes both dismissive and fearful avoidance. The love bombing that an avoidant does is different than that of a narcissist because the intent behind it is vastly different. When you're dealing with an avoidant, especially a dismissive avoidant, you're dealing with a person that spent a lifetime bottling up and suppressing emotions. This is a person that has a very specific set of fears. But those fears have not been triggered yet early in the relationship. That's why the early portion of the relationship with the avoidant is called the shared fantasy, because it's a fantasy to the avoidant. It's not a real relationship yet. It's a romance novel. It's a fairy tale. Everything is just great. Now, the avoidant genuinely believes that they got it right this time. They found the right person. The dopamine is flowing, the feel-good hormone that goes off in the brain. Oxytocin, another feel-good hormone, is going off too. And the avoidant is letting all these bottled up emotions flow out onto you. And it feels wonderful. You feel seen, heard, desired, validated. You feel like you've met your twin flame. And then as the relationship progresses and things become more real, the insecurities of the avoidant show up. And that can vary a bit depending on whether you're dealing with a dismissive or a fearful avoidant. But either way, they begin to self-sabotage the relationship. And it can be a very heartbreaking experience. And you hold on to that early version, that love bombing version. Your heart doesn't want to let go of it because you saw the potential of who they could be. Love bombing is dangerous to fall for because it really can contribute to you bonding to a person that really isn't right or healthy for you. That's why it's so incredibly important to slow things down. Hold that as a boundary, boundary being your limits. Hey, I really like you and I like where this is going, but I think we're moving a little bit fast. Why don't we slow it down and get to know each other more? And if this is a person that's healthy, if this is a person that respects your needs, feelings, and boundaries, they are going to agree. They're going to slow the pace down to get to know you because they are investing into you, not just the attention you give them. But if you're dealing with a person that's emotionally unavailable, a person that may be a bit selfish because emotionally unavailable people tend to be selfish in a relationship, they're not going to respond well to you holding that boundary. They may either run away altogether, or they may just ignore your boundary and continue to push and to continue to try to escalate and advance things very quickly. Now, with an avoidant, they tend to jump in like that because this is a person that does need external validation. They do need to be wanted and desired to feel better about themselves. They have deep insecurities that are rooted in childhood emotional neglect. They didn't get the love and the nurturing from their parents or caretakers in the way that they needed. This affects their self-esteem. So people with very low self-esteem often rely on external validation to feel better about themselves. And due to childhood experiences, many avoidants, especially dismissive avoidants, grow up to be people pleasers. So their people pleasing tendencies, trying to get other people to like them so they can feel better about themselves, are part of the love bombing, showing you what they think you want to see in order for you to like them. But as the relationship progresses, it's no longer a fantasy. It's a real relationship, which means real vulnerability, real emotional intimacy, real disagreements, and real expectations. Those are very triggering, especially to a dismissive avoidant and the dismissive avoidant side of a fearful avoidant. With the fearful avoidant, the love bombing has a lot to do with their anxious side in addition to their avoidant side, trying to earn the love and the validation in the way that an anxious person would, but also letting bottled up emotions flow out at the same time as disorganized attachment. But either way, letting yourself bond to this person way too soon can have consequences. Slow the pace down, hold that as a boundary, get to know them. Yes, that early potential of who they could be is very captivating. But when they discarded you, hurt you, blindsided you, slow faded out on you, when they showed that they had little regard for your feelings or needs, that is part of who they are too. Because the love bombing version is only part of who they are. It's a potential of who they could be, not the actuality of who they actually are. When they showed you unhealthy behavior, when they showed disregard for your needs, your feelings, your boundaries, when they showed that your feelings were not a consideration to them, when they perhaps even abruptly ended the relationship, they're showing you who they are, their insecurities, as well as their character. Now, this is a very painful, unfair lesson because you would never do it to them, but it's a lesson on why falling into love bombing and not pacing things can be so incredibly painful. Oh, one more thing. Another reason to slow the pace and hold that boundary early on to make sure you're not rushing in too fast is to respect your own self-worth. Because if you're allowing yourself to get sucked in, it can be easy to subconsciously tie in your self-worth with this person's validation. Your self-worth is not dependent on whether this person wants you or not. And by holding that boundary, you are sending that message to yourself, which, by the way, is a very secure thing to do. Not holding the boundary and rushing in and tying in your self-worth into this person's validation and attention is a very anxious thing to do. So stay grounded, stay secure, hold boundaries.